But Jerry, let me just say thank you for coming on Freedom Friday today. Our folks are dying to hear from you about all of this.
Well, Carl, it's a great pleasure to be with you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and it's been my pleasure to have you on this program over the years quite a bit, from the Obama birth certificate to everything else going on in the world. And listen, let me just tell you, I have never reached the status of author that you are, but as a fellow author, let me congratulate you. I'm so happy for you. I'm proud for you and proud of you. And you and I had the opportunity to meet in Washington and have breakfast together a couple times at CPAC a few years ago, and I appreciate what you do.
Well, thank you. And this book has been it's really done extremely well. It's probably going to be one of the best selling books on the Trump presidency. But I'm still fighting the New York Times, and they won't. It's outsold half the list of the New York Times for 2 weeks. Yeah. And they won't put it on the bestseller list.
Gee, I wonder why. The New York Times?
They hate the book. I mean, they don't want anybody reading Killing.
Now, just looked. It's been number 1 on Amazon, but right now, I'm just going to tell our audience, right now, it's number 31 out of all of the 17, 18 million books on Amazon. Is number 31, and it's number 1 in the category of public affairs and policy. It's number 1 in the category of modern philosophy, government, politics. It's number 1 in the category of conservatism and liberalism, government and politics. I mean, number 31 out of 17 million, and each of those categories have thousands of books in them. I mean, this book is hot, Jerry.
Well, thanks, Carl. It's the same thing I've experienced before, and that I'm so thankful to be on your show and to get the word out. But the left is completely intolerant. One of the reasons I wrote Killing the Deep State is I really wanted to show the smoking gun evidence against the FBI. I mean, when you read this book, you're going to be stunned. It's clear there was, and I think there still is, a coup d'etat effort against President Trump, and it's led by this hard left that has now come to dominate the CIA, the Justice Department, the FBI, the bureaucracy in general. I mean, but weaponized and politicized the FBI to the extent where it's, I think, obvious. I make a compelling case in the book that several, including this Andrew McCabe, who was fired for lying under oath and making up evidence, they are planning a coup d'etat, and with Robert Mueller in place, they've still got it going.
Yeah, and what's Strzok's girlfriend's name with the FBI? What's her name?
Lisa Page.
Page. Yeah,
the two of them. It was Peter Strzok, who headed the counterintelligence division, and Lisa Page, and we've been having the Inspector General Horowitz reveal as needed some of their emails and text messages, and the smoking gun there is that they decided that in McCabe's office, who was the Deputy Attorney General, that before the election they were saying how much they hated Donald Trump, how much they wanted Donald Trump to lose, how horrible it would be if he won, and they needed this insurance policy to make sure that if Trump won, that they could impeach him, make sure he never served his term, and this was. I think the Russian dossier, this Russian fusion GPS dossier, that the FBI, Comey admitted under oath to in congressional testimony that the FBI could not validate, they could not authenticate it. Yet 3 times Comey wrote FISA applications for electronic surveillance of Trump's campaign, his transition team, and even his presidency. Yeah. And said this was a fine document, didn't tell the FISA court that the FBI couldn't validate it. I mean, one time or the other, Comey was lying.
Yeah, you reckon?
I would think.
Yeah. Well, folks, listen. My guest this afternoon is Dr. Jerome Corsi. Many of you recognize his voice because he's on television and radio all the time doing interviews. He's been on Freedom Friday a lot over the years. Dr. Jerry Corsi. He received a Ph.D. from Harvard University in political science in 1972. He's an investigative journalist and senior staff writer for several conservative websites. And Jerry is the author of 6 New York Times best-selling books, including the number one bestsellers, Unfit for Command, you guys will remember that, and The Abomination, you'll remember that. He also wrote the book, Where's Obama's Birth Certificate? Where's the birth certificate? Because that book, Jerry, and I don't want to get all into that right now. I mean, we can get into as much as you want, but that's the book that corresponded with a businessman named Donald Trump poking Obama in the chest. You need to put a long-form birth certificate up. You need to put it, and it was at the same time your book about the Obama birth certificate was being released, and that's when Obama put the long-form certificate up there that has now been proven to be an absolute fraud. And so that was that book. And so this is that Jerry Corsi. So Jerry, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you. And I've gone back a long way with Donald Trump. I've known him for decades.
Yeah.
And I'm a strong supporter. I think, I thank God we have him in place. I think it was almost a miracle that he got elected.
Yeah.
And, this book, the whole killing of the deep state, I think is going to shock people. I mean, I make a very compelling case in the killing of the deep state that Barack Obama has never stopped working behind the scenes to oust President Trump. He's, the wizard behind the screen. He's got a couple of key operatives, including Valerie Jarrett, who moved into the mansion that Obama bought in Washington, D.C., and Obama's still working day and night against President Trump. He's never stopped. And, this whole issue of who Obama is, what his background is, what his legitimacy was to be president, all of these issues, what we've got now is the hard left that is absolutely intolerant. This hard left I'm beginning to call the hate left.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want the First Amendment. They don't want the Second Amendment. They detest Donald Trump. And so, therefore, this deep state, the plot that was hatched, the coup d'etat plot, treason in the FBI, we now know also from more of the emails we're getting from Strozik and Page, during the campaign, included the chief of staff of the White House, Obama's White House. It included Senator Reid. It included John Brennan and the CIA. This was a very deep plot that I think pervaded the entire Obama administration, and it was a coup d'etat to make sure that Hillary never faced any criminal charges, and that this Russia collusion narrative, which has absolutely no evidence to it, was created to derail Donald Trump, make sure he never served his term. And we're more than a year into this Mueller investigation, and all Mueller can produce is an indictment against 13 wacky Russians who posted some things on social media, but even the Justice Department admitted did not impact the election, will never come back to the United States, never be extradited from Russia to face trial, and we're not in collusion with Trump or his campaign. If that's all Mueller's got, Mueller's down to arresting Ted Malloch, a professor, U.S. citizen in Boston Airport when he's coming home to have Easter at his wife's home in Ohio, forcing him to answer questions at the airport, separating him from his wife, taking his cell phone, confiscating it, not giving it back to him, and serving him with a subpoena to appear before the grand jury on the 13th of April. I mean, Ted Malloch would have easily cooperated with, Mueller easily. This is kind of thug tactics. These are the tactics that a Gestapo utilizes. I mean, I'm shocked. And as I write in Killing the Deep State, you're going to be shocked when you see the extent to which these people are connected, going back to George Soros, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and yes, the special counselor, Robert Mueller. These people have been working together for a long time.
Yeah. The deep state is deep, and it's not only the deep state, but as you and I, being believers, we also understand the deeper state. That is the spiritual aspect behind all of this as well. This gets deep. It gets dark. Your book is being used, I think, perhaps of the Lord himself to kind of help pull the veil back, to expose, to show, to document, to convince. And I think it's a very important book. Not only is it interesting, not only is it compelling, but Jerry, I'm not trying to be patronizing to you, but I really really think this book is important, just like Unfit for Command. I mean, that turned a presidential election around. The Obama birth certificate book, I mean, that caused the White House under Obama to do something very, very stupid that I think is going to come back to haunt them all in the end. This book, Killing the Deep State, The Fight to Save President Trump, I think is just as important, Jerry. Do you get that feeling?
Well, Carl, you're one of the people who will understand I wrote the book for spiritual reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, what compelled me was that this anti-American deep hatred on the hard hatred left is, at its core, anti-American. It does not mind violating laws to achieve its objectives. You know, the First Amendment means nothing. They're intolerant. They want us all to go to prison or thought reform, censored off of the internet, and which, by the way, YouTube did to me, and I had to, protest it point out. I went on a Twitter attack on Eric Schmidt, pointing out, that CIA created Google, that it's the front dashboard is his free Facebook, to typing in all your information for the IRS, the CIA, the NSA.
Right.
And this is the beginning, I think, of the attack. I think when I was censored, and when Donald Trump saw that, was the beginning of his attack on Facebook and on Amazon, that these internet giants are going to have to be brought. And I say in the book that this is all part of the plan, where all this data goes into the intelligence agencies and to the leftist campaigns. Eric Schmidt was head of Google, was the top technical officer for Hillary, used all the Google data to get her to get out of the vote effort. And people got to realize this. I mean, these are people who are godless, who do not want the First Amendment, do not have any use for the Second Amendment, and want the Fourth Amendment to be weaponized against us, where they can collect all of our information and then censor us off social media.
Right. And that's where it's headed. That is their agenda, because as you and I were talking offline, they want to be the overlords, and they want Jerry Corsi and Carl Gallups and the listeners here to be the worker bees. And so they've got an agenda, and this groundwork has been laying probably for 100 years, at least many decades, but probably 100 years. And now it's kind of coming to fruition. Jerry, listen, let's take a time out, Jerry. When we come back, I would like for you to talk about, because in your book, you talk about how we can, Donald Trump can vanquish the deep state. He can win this, and he can beat the never-Trumpers once and for all. So I want you to give us kind of the good news, the positive news from your standpoint. Okay, Jerry?
Yes, I'd be happy to.
Okay, fantastic. Folks, we're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, more with Jerry Corsi. And folks, Jerry Corsi is my guest. He is the author of the best-selling book, Killing the Deep State, The Fight to Save President Trump. It went to #1 on Amazon out of all of the many millions of books. The first day that it was out, it went to #1. Right now, today, weeks later, it's number 31 out of all of the millions, and it's #1 in several different categories, and those categories have thousands and thousands of books in them. I mean, this is a runaway bestseller, Dr. Corsi. I know the New York Times doesn't even want to pretend, they pretend like it doesn't even exist, yet it should be right up there as another #1 New York Times best-selling book, and probably is by all statistics, but they will not acknowledge it. Why? I'm convinced, you don't have to say anything, I'm convinced because they're part of the deep state. And they don't want this book out there, because not only do you expose the whole stinking mess, but you also talk about how Trump can win this thing. Talk to us about that.
Well, I make it clear that this is a propaganda attack, and it's not going to, you can't say there's no Russian collusion, because Mueller will say, we just haven't looked hard enough. We'll find the evidence and we'll make it up.
Yeah.
I think he's in the category these days of making it up. The point is, Trump needs to launch, and he's beginning to launch a counterattack, and he will be, I think, extremely effective at it. You're seeing the beginning of it. The way you deal with propaganda attacks is you have to undermine the credibility of those attacking you. So now, from what we know, and we only are beginning to know the surface here of what the true depths of this coup d'etat was, you begin to see how deeply the corruption was within the Department of Justice, which I say was the center point of the plot to deny Trump the presidency. And the Department of Justice, and then the CIA, the White House, with serious crimes, electronic surveillance of Trump on the basis of this FISA GPS document, which was a lie from the beginning and admitted to be so by even former FBI Director Comey. And the names unmasked and leaked to the press at the time it got to the White House. The plot was designed to make sure Hillary was never charged with any crimes, even though it was apparent her use of her private server violated security regulations for handling classified materials. And when Donald Trump launches this attack, which is beginning, it's going to start exactly the way that Jeff Sessions has, with the appointment of an outside counsel out in the Justice Department, but outside Washington. This Huber from Utah, which is a great choice. And we're going to get the Inspector General's report. And then with the Inspector General's report, I think the momentum will be there for a special prosecutor. Donald Trump will have indictments. He will be investigating these conspirators. He's going to be bringing them to justice. He's set the basis. He's declared already a national emergency in the executive order he signed on December 21st, confiscating, giving him the rights to confiscate the assets of those involved in serious human rights trafficking or corruption.
Yeah. And we read that right here over the air on this show. Go ahead.
And before we're done, Donald Trump will have military tribunals, and he will be trying, I'm predicting, even Hillary and Barack Obama for treason and sedition. And he will not stop, I believe, until it may take him a year or two, but over the next period of time, the tables are going to be turning. As you'll see when you read my book, I will devote a whole chapter to Hillary and Podesta being on Russia's payroll, even the bank accounts they were paid through,
Good gosh.
The offshore accounts, the shell accounts, the Russian oligarchs close to Putin for selling military technology to Russia, including this hypersonic technology that's behind this new Russian Satan hypersonic nuclear missile.
Yeah.
The tables are going to be changed, and Donald Trump will not quit until he brings these people to justice.
Wow. That's amazing. And, that lines right up with Mark Taylor's prophecies on the Trump prophecies. And I just had him on before you, and he said a lot of the same stuff you're saying, except he said the Lord told him this several years ago. And now you've got the documentation in this book to show that that's probably exactly where it's headed. This is absolutely astounding, Jerry.
Well, I greatly respect Mark's work. I'm not a Bible or I'm not a prophet. I'm a political scientist.
I know.
I'm coming to the same conclusions that Mark is coming to.
That's my point. Yeah, I wasn't trying to say that you claim to be a prophet or anything.
No, not at all.
But I know you don't. But I'm just saying you're coming to the same conclusions by coming at it from a political science and investigative.
And knowing Donald Trump and watching carefully what he's doing and how he's doing it. And I've been, decoding this QAnon, this intelligence agent who is, I think, also leading people to the same confidence and conclusion that, there is a plan. Donald Trump is on the plan. These social media companies are not going to be permitted to censor. They're going to be 100% regulated. Some of them are going to continue to lose billions of dollars.
Jerry, we've got to go, but listen, it's amazing what you're saying, and I can't wait to watch all this unwind. We're going to have you back to continue to talk about this later. Thanks for being on with us today, Jerry.
Thank you very much, Carl. I really
God bless
appreciate
you, buddy.
it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. God bless you.
American Survival Wholesale is proud to sponsor this ministry and their efforts to shed light on the issues that face our nation. As a veteran and Christian-owned and operated company, we support the freedom to express these Christian principles. We all understand the importance of being prepared. After witnessing the devastation of Hurricanes Harvey, Irma, and the wildfires that affected so many, please support this ministry by clicking on the link below and check out the amazing alt media package for our listeners. Plus, if you use the promo code PNN Radio, that's PNN Radio, you will receive free shipping, a savings of up to $200. Just click on the link below but please do it today. Your support means so much to this channel.
The Satanists wanted to install their own tribute, a pagan idol, on the Capitol grounds, right next to the Ten Commandments.
Billions around the planet are witnessing a world in the grasp of sadistic spiritual darkness. This unholy alliance has infected our governments, our religious institutions, and our societies. The world appears to be unraveling. But can the evil behind these dark supernatural forces be defeated? Is everything playing out just as the Bible predicted it will in the final days? At last, you can know the answers to mankind's most urgent questions and learn your destiny among today's events in the new, unprecedented work taking the prophecy world by storm. Gods and Thrones, Nakash, Forgotten Prophecy and the Return of the Elohim by best-selling author, former decorated law enforcement officer, and senior pastor Carl Gallups. This changes everything. Available now wherever fine books are sold.